St. Patrick's Day to all. I feel like I have been celebrating St. Patrick's Day for over a week now. I've worn the sweater out attending St. Patrick's events, so now I can put it away until next year. What shall we do?
Want to do the budget? That's what's.
Yeah, let's do the budget first,
do that.
And then.
So here's your budget. There it is. You have an executive summary, and you have the full, 300-page or so document. So we will transmit that to the assembly today, and as you are aware, it's a $23.4 million budget. It's actually down 6.1% from last year. And the big piece of that decrease, of course, is our transfer of the Sheriff's Department functions to the state. And the two biggest pieces of that are, of course, the transfer of the pass-through deeds excise amount that used to come through us. We would pass it to the sheriff. That was in our budget. That was about $2.25 million. And then, of course, the maintenance of effort, of which we're using about $1 million of the 2.2 to pay for the pension liability associated with the sheriff's retirees, and that will remain.
And that will remain
until the end of the funding schedule, which right now is 2028. But of course, there is a provision in the both the Governor's Pension Reform Act, and I think it's in the municipal relief piece as well, to extend the funding schedule. So that number, if the funding schedule was to be extended, that number would go down. So that's good news.
Oh,
we still have to pay it. We have to pay it till the end of the funding schedule.
And why is it that we only pay it to the end of the funding schedule?
Because when the unfunded liability is all paid for. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's would be paid
Everybody's will be paid for at the end of the funding schedule.
And you'll be essentially 100% funded. There'll be no unfunded liability remaining. All that will be remain to pay is what's called your normal cost. But for the sheriff's people, we don't have any normal costs because they're all with the state.
Okay. And then all the new retirees in the sheriff's department will be state retirees.
Yeah, anybody who retires after January 1st of this year is retiring through the state system, and there's no liability at all associated with them from the associated with the county.
Okay.
So that's good.
That is good.
That's good. So there's the budget. As you know, we have our presentation to go over at the assembly, and I'm going to leave about 3:45 to go over there and set up. And you guys have had a chance to go through it. I don't know if you had any comments or if you wanted to say anything about
what we should do is just go through the. Well, I think the whole budget is probably yours to do.
When we get to blaming that on me.
Yeah.
War in my name.
No, when we get to the details.
Well,
when it says overview proposed 2011 budget.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, because the details as far as the specific items are ones that he would be more familiar with.
Right.
I would say that our place is more in the area of philosophy and direction, because I believe that the request from the assembly was essentially that we say what was the guidance that we were using that directed the decisions that we made, and that indeed is philosophy and direction, and how it plays out in terms of the specific numbers are ones that Mark would indeed report.
Yeah.
So on here, as the chair, I would feel very comfortable if you just went through and just talked about it, the philosophical applications that we have.
Well, my thought was we have 6 areas that we are going to talk about. The county effectiveness and efficiency, wastewater and water quality, IT improvements, the enhance and maintain regional services, regional planning services, and other regional efforts. And then when we get to the next page, that begins to break down those 6 priorities.
We're just going. Do you want me to get another copy for you, Sheila? We're just going through the presentation.
Here, I'll do it. Where is it?
They're in the box that has. It's on my chair that has the projector.
Do you have yours?
This is
okay.
Actually, this is what you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
These are the notes.
All right. So under county effectiveness and efficiency, I thought I would address that. in terms of the comprehensive organizational assessment, the DOR financial assessment, and the Commissioner of Financial Staff reorganization. Maybe you want to chime in on that piece. That's the part that relates to the sheriff's leaving.
Yep.
Then wastewater and water quality issues. First is the health department, septic betterment. Who wants to take that one?
Well, Sheila has indeed been the one that's been our
Do you want to do the whole
representative
wastewater thing?
I guess I can. I can speak to that a bit, and I can.
And the water protection collaborative.
I can definitely chime in on that.
Okay, now information technology. This is based on the. I wonder, we don't have enough of those reports to give them, do we? That
The full NUIAN? No,
Yeah.
I haven't made. I'm not sure that's such
that's
a good idea. Yeah.
okay. Well, do you want to address that
Yeah,
then?
I can talk about that one a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then enhance and maintain the regional services.
Okay, that'd probably be the time when I should get in, right?
Okay, the expanded energy efficiency program.
Mhm.
You want to do that one? The shellfish propagation.
Yeah, okay.
Lyme disease.
Yeah,
Do
these
you
are
want to
things-
do all of those?
Yeah, why don't I go through all of that? However, I would defer to Sheila if she wanted to
And the
jump in
human
and
service
search
collaboration?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And then regional planning services, the enhanced GIS.
You know, didn't we talk about having Paul involved in this? Because this would
Not
be...
on the budget presentation, no.
Yeah.
So
I did
the,
mention if he could be there. I wasn't sure whether he was planning on it or not. But to
Okay.
Paul.
But,
But
okay, excuse me.
sure, the last one. Do you want to pick that one up?
About the GIS?
Just both, just the regional planning and the kind of the philosophy
Yes.
over at the commission about, you know.
and the local planning and
we can talk a
technical
lot. It's-
services.
Yeah, it's just
Sure.
about becoming more of a service organization than a
Right.
Okay.
regulatory organization.
Exactly.
Then I can
Okay,
take
I can do
the
that.
Open Cape
Mm-hmm.
and the assessing, or
What is this Cape Cod Municipal Health School? That's our
and this
insurance
is
agent, right?
for
That would be for
this
you.
would be
And
Mark.
actually, Maggie is the chair
Oh,
of
Maggie?
the wellness committee, and she's worked an awful lot at doing both the wellness programs and implementing the new rate saving programs to try to save money.
Do you want to
That's
do
all
that
about.
one, Maggie?
She's not going to be there. So.
Oh, you're not going to be
I
there.
can
So you want to
mention
do
it,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that pretty much
It's
covers
slaving
it.
away
And
with that.
and then that way it'd be a segue into...
And then
the
that then
overview.
goes right into Mark,
Then we go
and
into the
he'll.
budget detail.
And then the idea, I think, and we should encourage them in the beginning to say that if this is a dialogue, then let's have a dialogue. And we can lay out for you what our intent here. But what the thing I want to emphasize with them initially, which I said last week, that this budget was built on strategic objectives that the commissioners and the county want to achieve, and that each and everything in here has meaning. If there's an increase in funds from the previous year, there's a reason for it. If there's a decrease, there's a reason for that as well. And that, so that's what we need to have a dialogue about is the intent of the monies that are actually proposed in this budget to accomplish certain goals.
Okay. I have a question on the expanded...
Thank you. I was just going to say, do you
efficiency
know what
What?
you
program.
should say? So go
Okay,
ahead.
and the only...
Which one are you
I have
talking-
This is under
energy efficiency.
energy efficiency. Because I have a note to
Oh.
myself that I was going to include the $734,000 grant, but that's only part of it because that's not providing direct services to consumers.
I think and I want to just clarify this, what Mark is referring to in this budget for expanded energy efficiency services is under the Green Communities Act, the Cape Light Compact's energy efficiency program has grown from a $5 million enterprise fund to an $18 million enterprise fund. And we are now participating with all of the other utilities in a statewide program. And, I don't know how much detail. I think I would end it there.
Yeah.
If you get asked a lot, you could say, why? If anyone says, why is it expanding so much? Your response should be under the Green Communities Act, under your least cost for addressing supply. Energy efficiency is first before you build any more generation units, and you can talk to that, from your heart, but I wouldn't give it to them because it'll be too confusing unless somebody asks a question.
The appliance rebate program, statewide, the 6.5, is that included in your 18?
No.
No. So that's...
So this is
another
just
thing I'll
energy
mention.
efficiency measures for improving the energy efficiency of the structure, either residential or commercial, in order to reduce the amount of energy that's being used.
Right.
And our history with that has been that we've been able to demonstrate a significant reduction in the amount of overall electric use over the several years that the Cape Light Compact has been there. And this will help us accelerate the value that we're delivering to the community.
This has been mandated by the Green Communities Act.
And that's always the least cost alternative.
Right, energy efficiency first. And by the way, your energy efficiency block grant dollars is included in the $18 million because that's one of the outside sources of funds. Just so you,
So the
just so you
6.5.
know. The six, no, that's a separate statewide grant that we're administering. And
I think the only thing I want to speak to is the 5 million going to 18 million. Okay, and that's the only one that we can talk about without adding an element of confusion.
So I think that should be fine. And if you get,
And once they meet with their departments, they can get
we're
more
meeting
of
on the
those details.
21st. If they have of April, but they're meeting only on the county side of the budget because that's within their purview. This is just they're just primarily the fiscal agent for these funds.
Yeah,
And
but
can I-
it reflects the staffing. So.
Right.
But this also has, say, there's development going on, and you partner with them, even according to the regional policy plan. You help.
Right. Part of the energy efficiency programs under the new construction program, we review and we partner with our county organization, the commission, in reviewing plans at the get-go, so that new buildings that are being designed are designed and built as efficiently as possible.
Okay.
And we bring the rebates to the table to help them cover the incremental costs from going from a standard HVAC system to a high efficiency system, the same with standard lighting, high efficiency lighting.
Right.
And Bill can address
Okay. Okay.
if he gets any questions.
Okay, well, the shellfish propagation thing is essentially a part of the overall economic development using aquaculture that that we're trying to support, and I think we've demonstrated in the past was it like about a 10 times return on investment.
For the shellfish propagation?
Right.
It can be, yeah. It all depends on what the survival rate you use in your factory.
Either 10% or 50%,
Yeah.
but no less than 10%. But even at 10%, there's a significant.
There's a huge leveraging.
And on Lyme disease and education and awareness, we are now the only ones that are providing support for that in this community.
Well, actually, on those next 4, Bill, the shellfish, Lyme, household hazardous waste, and buy fresh, buy local, really, we've put some money in because we're not anticipating either any state funding or local funding, especially on the household hazardous waste collections. So we're kind of stepping up and filling in what potentially could have been avoided.
Okay.
Right, and even by doing that, those monies save down the line as far as people contracting Lyme's disease
health
and
insurance costs,
and the household waste. I mean, they're just when
Water
people have no place to
quality,
put it,
exactly.
they're going to dump it into
Yeah.
a stream or something.
Yeah,
So,
Children's COVID.
thank you.
Okay, next page. All right, who's doing the regional plan, the GIS? You are? Yeah, you are
Yes,
doing that,
right.
Sheila. And then I'm going to do,
Open Cape
and then Mark's going to
assessing.
do
You're doing assessing as well.
right.
And then Mark will take over for health group. And then you do the overview.
And then the other, well, let's go. So when it comes to revenues, Mark obviously will do that.
So we've seen a reduction in budget because we're not seeing money that would normally come through us.
2 pieces of the sheriff's piece, yeah. One is just the pass-through, the other was the maintenance of effort. But we were able to utilize those savings from the maintenance of effort to fund health insurance, retirement costs, and all the other costs associated with the county's activities. So we did bump up our grant revenues. We've been doing pretty good at getting grant revenues. Bond revenues, we've got, the big water quality testing lab is proposed in there, and that's additional funding in addition to the $1 million that we have set aside in cash to pay for that. We do have to deal with the DCAM issue, but, and I think, it's a highlight. There's no treasury balance funding. Not too long ago, we were assuming about $1.5 million in rollover money from the previous fiscal year into next fiscal year in terms of our treasury balance, balancing the budget. We've, over the past few years, weaned ourselves off that, and this 2011 budget proposed one of the first ones that I can recall that won't assume any treasury balance.
Would this be considered a balanced budget?
Oh, it's absolutely.
Okay.
We've never
Just
had
want to be clear.
I know,
So
but it's balanced
the revenue
without going
balanced
into revenues.
with the revenues.
It's balanced
With-
without assuming revenues left over from
Right.
this year, and with
This
a
com-
higher degree, I think, of conservatism on the deeds excise funds. I think we're a little concerned about maybe interest rates going up in the future. There's some talk about that. A bit of a balance that the feds is striking out there right now, but if that should happen, who knows what that would do to the real estate market. And so we want to try to be, I think, over the next year, maybe two, as conservative as possible on the deeds excise, and that's what we're trying to do.
And these measures that we're doing will actually foster that, because we're on the road to becoming more efficient and
Yep.
doing more with less.
And living within our projected means.
Yes.
And so we don't anticipate having additional revenues available at the end of this year either.
No, and we haven't had over the past few years.
No, right.
It's been pretty lean and pretty mean. So
But once
Not
these
mean.
are in place,
Lean,
hopefully we will
not
be
mean.
we've been
increasing our revenues. And once, the technical, the IT things are up and running properly, I mean, there'll be a lot of efficiencies put in place
Yeah.
so that we're positioning ourselves for the future.
Plus, I think
Right.
on that last bullet, there's some opportunities that may be out there. The Open Cape, the assessing. I mentioned the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group because that has the potential to save money. So there may be some opportunities out there that we
Yeah,
have.
and speaking of Open Cape, one of the opportunities that are provided with Open Cape, we might mention that, is as they install Open Cape, especially since I think there's an element of burying some of the fiber optics that are part of the support, that they could include anticipated expansions. And one of the things that we should emphasize as far as opportunities is that when we look at transportation improvements, that we should always consider putting in a piece that supports future infrastructure needs for communication when they open up a street, because that's something that has not, and I'm sure you've seen it, in your time with the commission. I know I saw it, and I kept asking the question: if we're opening up the street, why aren't we putting in conduit so that we could, we could bring in the, fiber, we could bring in, other, the potential for increasing some of the electric power, that would be there, and just saying, instead of saying, well, we're going to dig it up, we're going to repave it, and then not take that into account. So whenever we look at improvements, adding sewer lines, adding road improvements, that's something that the Open Cape brings to mind, because it is going to be a spine that goes from Providence to Provincetown, and
Right.
something that's
And we
very
will,
valuable.
and when we speak with Open Cape, and we, because we will be meeting with them and, putting details on our partnership, that we can try to emphasize that we'll take the lead in coordinating that, so that if there are streets open, we will know about it, and that can go forward and support that. And you're right, and even, were there always those capabilities even before? Now Open Cape really does provide that opportunity for that cable to be put down, to be put in those open areas.
Well, we won't know about it, but we need to encourage the towns to, when they are having street openings, to let,
You always have to pull
Have
a
a
street
permit.
cut permit.
yeah, but you have to pull it from the town.
Yeah, you pull
Well,
it from the town.
the
Yeah,
benefit
but
of the
so
Open
the-
Cape is it will become a DRI, okay, which means, which means that it does go to the Cape Cod Commission, so the Cape Cod Commission could exercise a certain amount of encouragement and support for things that are close to my heart, like sidewalks, alternate transportation, opportunities, and and consider this. Well, we've been talking about I guess this is a related issue because one of the potential avenues for Open Cape is the existing transmission line rights of way that are carrying our transmission line across the Cape. That turns out to be 150 miles, 200 feet wide, about 3,600 acres of open property that could be used for recreational, alternate transportation. It could be used for for setting these other things that we're talking about. And I think that this is one of those opportunities that we cannot miss. That since we know about it, we have an obligation to make sure that everybody else knows about it as well.
And we can coordinate. We can foster that coordination and communication.
Let me mention something else about Open Cape. Our piece to Open Cape is equal to how many dollars? Is it $5 million?
No, we just did that. Over time it is, but we just had to calculate, I think the first
year?
3 years?
The first 3 years
was a total of almost $1 million.
I think it came out to be just about $1 million.
Yeah.
But it will expand, but also there'll be a give back in many ways because of the renovations, number one, of what they will be doing to the building, which will also open up space for all of us. And as we work out those leasing agreements with them and maybe even possibilities of enterprise.
But our contribution is really in the space.
In kind, right.
It's
in kind,
right.
And for the first 3 years, it will amount to about $1 million.
Just about $1 million.
Now, one of the things I hope that that comes into this federal money that comes in here, the one piece that's been left out is that they have the money for the capital piece, but one of the concerns that I have from a business point of view is that they don't have what I would call the money for working capital for providing the operators and supporting the operators. That's something that I think Open Cape is hoping to get through their partners, but it's something that I know in transportation they have finally recognized that when you give the capital money, you have to have somebody to run the buses and get that. So that's another piece, and that may come up in terms of an opportunity for advocacy, and I would suggest that that's something that we would keep in mind and hopefully support. That that it isn't just the bricks and mortar, it's also the people that occupy it, because the jobs that were talked about when they did the runoff are 200 jobs, but only during construction. We have to think in terms of how many jobs can we tie to that would be sustained over the period of time it was operating.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, there will be those jobs of running the operation, and that will all come with the details that will be worked out in the near future with Open Cape and its various partners, including us.
Although I think it's premature, Bill, to say that grant does not include any
Right,
operating.
exactly. I think it does.
I think there's admin money there. I haven't seen the grant details, but I would hesitate to say that it doesn't.
Right.
It may. Usually
we have to find out.
Okay, we do, because administrative support doesn't always cover what I call the cost of setting something up. Every business that I've been involved with in a startup, you take more money to sort of get it up to speed, and then when you're in a steady state condition, you can reduce the amount of investment that you have. We want this desperately to succeed because it will mean so much to all of us.
And if I can just add one more thing, I do think that I think Mark's right, I do think that they have built that into the whole proposal. But the bigger picture is, not only is it those immediate jobs and the admin jobs, but the potential for quality economic development, not just quantity, but people are going to be able to now become more entrepreneurial. Not only is it going to enhance education services and public safety, but people will now have options to be able to be more creative, more global. Small businesses will be able to reach out beyond its borders. It will have an impact on the quality of economic development on our region that we can't even foresee at this moment. I mean, the potential is great there, and I think that that's the biggest benefit of it.
Okay. At the pie chart, and then to the
So,
next.
yeah, so I'm not sure exactly where you guys left
Well,
out. So the revenue pie chart, it just gives you a sense of, tax revenues obviously are our biggest funding stream, and that's the county tax, the Cape Cod Commission tax, and the deeds tax revenues. Department revenues, dredge funds, the lab funds, fire training academy funds, those things are second. Intergovernmental grants is a big piece, that's 1.6 million. We have a big bond program, mostly because of the 900,000 for the treasury, the lab relocation. So I can just run over those.
Now, there hasn't been any increase in fees, county fees.
We have not
for any-
increased the fees in this budget at all, nor have we increased the rate of the county deeds tax assessment. That stayed the same at $2.70 per thousand.
What was the 2.5% increase?
The 2.5% increase is on the county tax and the Cape Cod Commission tax. We didn't increase those two.
We did not increase it?
We did.
We
No,
did
we
increase
did.
it. Yeah, we did.
Affirmative.
Okay, but then
Yes.
when you say the
That's the
tax
levy.
rate still is
But that's the
2.5%.
levy, that's the
levy.
levy tax.
There's no additional fees or anything.
Okay, but so how does the levy reflect the 2.5% increase? Wouldn't that have to be increased?
I'm not sure I understand. The deeds tax, the county tax and the Cape Cod Commission tax went up 2.5%.
To the towns.
For the town.
That's the
Right,
assessment.
the assessment to the towns, as allowed under Prop 2.5.
Okay, but what you're referring to is the revenue from the registry of deeds fees or
Excise tax.
excise tax?
Correct.
Okay.
That stayed the same as it
Stayed the
was
same,
last
yeah.
year.
Okay.
Okay, overview of expenditures, is that
And
where you are?
mostly we just talked
We just
about
talked
all of
about
these.
that.
I would, I'll emphasize about the sheriff unfunded pension liability piece. But most of those we talked about, and these are just some illustration of what your expenditure areas. Obviously, salaries did go up this year, and that's mostly in the form of steps. We did propose 2% COLA, and we are trying to fund the steps that we missed this year to get everybody back on July 1st where they would have been.
Mark, I mean, just in case it does come up, we are the only public entity that I am aware of on the Cape and the Vineyard that did not give COLAs and steps to their employees in this.
Yeah, you have to be a little careful with that, 'cause some did furloughs. There was a few that did furloughs.
Nobody did the combination of no COLA, no steps.
Yeah.
You mean this past
I
one or
don't
the one
think
that's...
there
This
was.
fiscal year that we're in
fiscal
right
year.
now, FY10.
Right, that's exactly
Right,
right.
and again, in FY11, there are combinations of, no COLAs or a day furlough, but nobody was as fiscally conservative to their employees as we were. A lot of people said they were considering this,
Right,
but
but
when
they
actually
never
it
did.
came down to it, nobody did both. Some did one or the other, but nobody did both.
Okay,
And
well,
considering that we were being
Sandwich had
pointed
reported that the Sandwich had reported that they had not
No,
done that.
no one, because I just checked on this, nobody did both for
They never
this
followed
fiscal year. I'm
through.
not talking about proposed coming up, I'm talking about
Yeah, a lot of
FY10.
people talked about it, but
Nobody
Yeah.
did both,
And if you remember,
for
there was...
all employees.
Like
Wait.
Falmouth didn't give the 2% in July, but they gave it in January.
But they also did steps for everybody
That's
from
right.
the get-go.
Yep.
So you have to remember to take the measure that we did, but us.
Right, and even though there was much discussion
Yeah,
that
no,
everybody
yeah.
else was feeling pain, well, we felt more. We felt it all.
Well, no, we didn't.
Yeah, and we did more with
Actually,
with
I
that.
think the point is that we followed through on what we said we were going to
That's
do.
exactly
yeah,
right.
and I would emphasize, I'd throw in, we actually got our two bargaining units, one at the registry, one at the facilities, to agree.
Okay.
So,
Which is great,
Which
and we
is
should
good.
say that,
Right.
yes.
And that's the,
So-
and that would be the justification
Like everybody's
for supporting them this year.
the group insurance actually, I'd highlight, even though rates actually went up, I think it was an average of about 5.4% this year.
Because of
Our expenditures are actually going down. We've had a lot of people, voluntarily and otherwise move from some of the more expensive plans. I think we only have now 3, and they were grandfathered in way back when, people on the indemnity plan. We don't have any, and those are all retirees.
So that doesn't reflect the sheriff's people leaving? Or does it?
No, because we never funded the sheriff's people
That's
leaving
right.
anyways.
So this is
we didn't fund
really,
them this year,
so
so it's
this-
really a savings. Yeah,
this really is a true savings of the county
Exactly.
employees moving into lower
lower
cost
cost
plans.
exactly.
That's
yeah.
great, that's really
So,
good.
Yeah, we've been doing a good
Don't
job.
forget
on
to highlight
group
that one,
insurance.
that's a good one.
Well, does that mean that we will
We
be
don't
no-
need a health reform bill?
It doesn't reflect,
No, don't
We
put
don't
words
wanna
in
go
my- I hate
into-
that. I hate that. Don't put
and
words in my
actually it
mouth.
doesn't reflect the new rate saver plans yet, because all of these numbers are based on actual. What are the people who are actually in the position or in the retirement, what are they in, what plan are they in now? So then when we go through April and the open enrollment period and people pick up, there may be some other savings. So.
No, that's not my question. My question is, we offer certain plans. Okay, there was some talk about us not offering the plans that we were offering. We're not anticipating any changes for next fiscal year in the plans that we're offering.
We are offering some additional plans called rate saver plans,
Okay.
which may give people the opportunity, and us as the employer, to save some money. And because they have higher co-pays, but they have lower.
No, I get that part of it, but in terms of someone who's one of our employees, and how we tell the people that at the assembly is that what the choice would be between what you have now and what we would offer. There's not going to be any forced choice as far as going from what you have to something else because of a budget shortfall.
Not for 2011.
That's what I mean. See, it wasn't about the health care plan.
You're so patient. Okay, retirement, up 10%?
The retirement was up 10%. That was the allocation across the board for all units. That does not include the sheriff's unfunded pension liability, which is a whole separate, different liability. But overall, our retirement assessment went up 10%. We did include that. And then you see, because of, especially because of the pass-through numbers, all other areas of our budget went down about 31%. And that reflects the sheriff leaving.
Yeah. And then the expenditures by
And then
group.
this just shows, you see salaries and fringe benefits, salaries 45% and fringe 19%, significantly more than half of our budget. That's what we do. We're a service organization, and that means people. You see the sheriff's pension piece there is now about 3% of the budget. And then I just go through the budget highlights. And then this is basically department by department, and I just kind of go
Are you going
down.
to say anything about Arts Foundation, or just let it sit there at 30?
That's what we put in, 30. We could say that, it had been 25,000 for a long time.
I wouldn't say a word.
No, I
I
wouldn't
just
say
I
that.
just presented.
I would just
There
say
you go.
that
We funded the Arts Foundation at 30,000.
But remember, they are the designated Arts Foundation of the county, and that we've always supported them, and their creative economy, and you know all that stuff.
Right.
You want to, and the compact, and
Well,
the,
the
talk about
question
the
comes
energy
up,
efficiency program and
if
stuff.
there's a reaction to that, then I think that we all are in agreement that it's been a long time since we've thrown on the bone, and it's time to do that, because I think that, like agriculture, there is a multiplier based upon the amount of money that we put into to support the arts, creative economy, the cultural tourism. Of all of the tourism elements that we have, the arts are the one that provides more income to the artist and the entrepreneur that supports the arts business than the tourist dollars that get to the salaries of the people working in the tourist industry.
and we restored the delegates' salaries.
Yeah?
We're supporting the restoration of the
Supporting the
salaries.
restoration.
Restore.
You're going to say that, aren't you, Mark?
Actually,
Should I mention that I don't agree with the Bob Troy opinion? Should I mention that or leave that out?
No, you should not say. You should leave that out.
Okay, I'll leave that out then. And
That's not in
IT,
here anyway.
I'll mention the new Eon report that we did. We're
Right.
really
What's
changing
it
the
called?
operational philosophy. New Eon.
New Eon, right.
And we're really changing the operational philosophy of IT so that they're more of a help desk
Right.
service provider, making sure everything's running correctly. And so, in that vein, we didn't provide them any new staff, but we did provide them with additional professional and technical services and some equipment funding. Facilities department, we did add some line items to fund the old jail building because we have the health department in there, but hopefully we'll be able to eliminate the trailers, so we won't have those expenses, so it's really a trade-off on that. There is some capital facility improvements in there. We have some elevator improvements in the Superior Court and Registry of Deeds. We have some roof repairs at Registry of Deeds. some ADA funding, both at the county complex and at Second District Core. So
That's one down in Orleans?
yeah.
Are we done with that yet?
No, we've tried to we've been on like a program to continue to do improvements year after year. We usually have about $5,000 in the budget for Orleans and $15,000 in the budget for the county complex.
No, we're under direction from the feds.
We're under consent decree right now, yeah.
Are we meeting those objectives?
We
at
are,
this
yeah.
point in the month?
Oh yeah. I'm just looking for the table. There's a budget highlights table in here that I'm looking for. It's in there somewhere. There it is. So it is, and we proposed paving the driveway at the county farm.
Oh, that's right.
Well, that's a good
That's
idea.
a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Especially since they're seeing more traffic with the
And
with
it's,
the people using the
more.
farm.
you know, it's just a mess. And it's not, the question may come up, why are we doing it for the farm? But we're really doing it for Bill Clark and the cooperative extension staff that we have at the
People who go in
farmhouse.
and out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
if there are more
Traffic,
and more
now
customers.
now that
Yeah.
we've made this a county asset, we
kind of
have
a
to
biting the
support it.
bullet thing. We've been trying
Well, the
to
landlord, we have to
go.
keep the property up.
We've been trying to, suffer through with, grading and some stone and stuff for years
Right,
and
we're
years
just
and
throwing
years.
good money after bad.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then we are proposing to operate the rest area using license plate funds.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's about $35,000.
Saw people pulling in there now that the weather's getting warm, people are pulling in. It's not open yet. I guess they're going to be disappointed.
No, we won't get our permit from the state until May. They'll allow us to open it in May, really, for I think a week before.
What's interesting
Memorial
about
Day.
that is that at a meeting that I was at yesterday for the regional transportation plan, a guy from the state got up and said that he was going to propose that we do more improvement on the shoulders of the roadways. And all I could think of is they closed all of the rest areas because he was saying you need someplace to to pull off safely, and there's only one rest area that's open, and we operate it and pay for it.
No, they closed a lot. A lot of the staffed rest areas were closed this last fiscal year and this fiscal year. Yeah.
And I know that it's a continuing issue, but I don't know. It's much safer to be able to pull into a rest area for services rather than be stuck on the side of the road.
And, I think we've covered cooperative extension, and those are really the highlights in their budget. And Registry of Deeds, Jack continues his staffing efficiencies, and what we're doing there is we have 34 funded and filled positions. We've been holding, I think, a total of 41, so 7 additional positions that we haven't funded. Jack's asked that we kind of hold them, a placeholder for them, in case they get busy over there again, but 34 funded positions. Dread Service, no changes there really. Health Department, we talked about the lab relocation. They did expand the septic betterment program staffing for the billing purposes, and we did lose some money on the tobacco program. The state has cut back in terms of the grant funding from the tobacco program, so the budget reflects that. Sheila will have mentioned the Human Service Collaboration and Coordination, and we've done well in there. It also includes the Human Rights Commission for about $29,000, and then Children's Cove assumes restored DSS funding, $65,000, which we did get this year as well. Elder Services is the same. Public Safety, I can talk about the remaining unfunded pension liability again, and using maintenance of effort to offset that, and the elimination of the pass-through. We can talk about, on the Fire Training Academy, we're exploring the certification authority. We think that will help on our long-term revenue picture for the Fire Training Academy, so we're working on that issue. In the Water Protection Collaborative, there's money in there to fund the Health Information Specialist at the Health Department of $42,000. And there's also $175,000 for the Municipal Support Initiative. So, and I have some speaking points from Andy on that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So, and that's to provide either financial assistance or technical assistance to towns in helping them implement their wastewater programs. And then the Cape Cod Commission, again, the emphasis is on providing local planning services and GIS technical services, and getting away from being a regulatory entity to being a service entity.
We need to have Paul come in. I don't know, we've seen him for a month or so.
And then EDC, this one will be a fun one. We've eliminated the. Is that me? That's not me.
No, it's fine. The operating budget.
We eliminated the operating budget. The position has been picked up by the Cape Cod Commission. It's in their Cape Cod Commission budget, so there's no operating budget liability to the county for the EDC. And the license plate funding, based on what it says in the legislation that established it, it's the direct appropriation of the county commissioners, so it's not subject to further appropriation, so it's not included in this budget. See how that goes over. And then on shared costs, we are proposing to fund the 2% COLA, and as I mentioned, we're proposing to fund the catch-up on the steps for 2010. It's not a typo. So there we have it.
Okay.
We'll see.
But overall, I believe that this is a strong, strategic, plan-driven budget. The philosophy is clear as to what's directed our thinking, and that we go over there with with the optimism that if the Assembly reviews the detail of what our thinking was, and in their committee process, that their committee process should support the rationale that we used, and I'm optimistic that this will be one that will go through fairly smoothly.
Yeah. No. I mean, if they have hopefully they'll have some questions today that we can get some sense of where they're coming from on the budget. My only experience was last year, where they cut some things, and then we decided, well, particularly the Office of Regionalization, and I happened to go to the East Ham last night, the report from the consultant on the regionalization of public safety for East Ham, Orleans, and Wellfleet. And it was really pretty interesting, and all I could think of was, when it came to the end, when the three boards of selectmen were discussing how they were going to move forward on this, and they were all very committed to do this, that if we had that Office of Regionalization funding in place, where we had access to be able to do what we could do to help them further this along, it would be a lot better. So it was really a drawback, I think, not to be able to say to them, gee, we have this Office of Regionalization, not with people, but with funding support, and give us something, and we can see how we can help you move this project forward.
Biggest disappointment that I have is that at the end of the budget process last year, they did say that if we had kept under budget at this time of year and came in with a suggestion of a particular program, that they would support it. So when it goes over there, instead of supporting it, they're looking for what I would call an outcome. In other words, hire the contractor, buy the equipment, and then we'll decide whether or not, after you've made those commitments, then we'll decide whether or not you can do it. Now, that to me is disingenuous and dissembling, because we were told one thing in the beginning. I accepted it as as an article of faith that if we did come up with a particular proposal, that they would support it, and they did not. So it was very disappointing.
The other point, and you had stated, you had somewhat intimated to this last year, as the executive branch and the legislative branch, they can question. I mean, theirs is either an up or down vote on a line item, and the details are left to the executive branch. For instance, and some of this came from the delegate of Barnstable, who was also an administrator, co-administrator of that town, when they put forward a supplemental or an initiative to their council, the council either says yes or no. They do not go into the details like provide us. It's not really their job. They approve, and usually it gets approved because those details are left to the executive, and that was beyond their purview. And this is where when I requested in the beginning from Bob Troy to do a lesson, to do an overview of those types of rules. Those are the things that people should be given some sort of education to. If you're elected as a legislator, as a state rep, as your, any other state office, you're given some sort of week training as to here's the rules that you're following, and this is what you can do and what you can't do, and this is how you can, this is the rules of the game. And there are no rules over there. I mean, nobody has a clear understanding. They just throw things out and we have to respond. And I think that there really has to be a some sort of education as to what.
Phil, there used to be rules. I'm also an alumnus of that.
I understand.
And at the time, it was the speaker that basically gave the direction and training. Starting with Roland DuPont, who was retained, after Julie became the speaker, and in both cases, it was their leadership that kept the rest of us understanding what the role was.
Right, and anyone newly elected to being county commissioner should be given the same type of overview of. I mean, all of these things you inherently sort of understand what it is your job is and where you're going, but to have that basic training, everyone gets it, and I think it would be good for this county to make it a mandatory
And
class.
last week, we actually voted to swap the assessing with the CMed, or with the fire chief's RFP that they want to look at in terms of CMed. So we're going to withdraw that ordinance of asking for the funding for the assessing from the assembly, and that's going to go under the DLTA funding, the local technical services funding. And then when the chiefs come up with their RFP and with what they need, then we'll take that to the assembly and have them fund it out of those other funds that we propose to use for assessing.
I certainly would have supported that if
we figured you would, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you, how was the Lower Cape public safety thing left? Were they going to submit like a proposal?
And what they're going to do is they asked for a selectman from each town to volunteer to head up this project for their town. And then they asked that they have a police chief, it was the selectman and the police chief and the town manager from each town form the initial planning group to get things underway, and then to report back in a month.
Okay.
So within a month, those 9 people will take a look at how they move forward,
what they can agree to and what they can't.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Okay.
But they agreed on some basic principles. For instance, with police, that there should be a police presence in each of the towns. Some, whether it's a storefront or an office in the town hall or whatever it is, there should be some place where a person can go and know that there would be some representation of a police service in the town. But the consultancy report was very well done, and there are a number of alternatives that they can use. And it seems as though if they wanted to talk initial savings, maybe something that they could hang their hat on, somewhere between $1.2 million and $1.4 million.
Yeah.
And so you have overall.
Oh, okay.
But then you
That's still
have
not bad.
Orleans, who has a police facility that is gone by the boards. I mean, it's old and not
outdated. Yeah.
And then you have Eastham, which has a newer building that's about 20 years old, but not large enough to support a regional station. And then you have Wellfleet, and theirs is, I think, fairly decent shape, but that's older as well. They were built in the 60s or the 70s,
the only new one.
which isn't all that new, huh?
Truro was the only new one.
Truro wasn't part of this, unfortunately.
And they're the ones that have the space in the facility.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
So anyway, but I was really impressed with the detail of the response, with the detail that was in that the consultant provided, and then with the detail of the response from the various boards of selectmen. It was really well done. Mark Morris. He did a really good job.
Do you think that if they had required that the consultant come up with his report before they funded it, that we ever would have funded it?
Right. You
Well,
know,
this was funded with the DLTA.
Yeah,
This is DLTA.
but it goes to show that this is what's lacking in the thinking is that they tried to do this on their own. You know, they came together and started looking at their dispatch, and there are so many things to look at, and there's so many details to uncover that boards of selectmen individually or volunteers within the towns, you know, that populate the different boards, which are mostly volunteers, especially in the smaller towns. It's just too much. And if you have to rely on people dedicating themselves to that practice on top of everything else they're doing, nothing's really going to get done. You have to bring someone outside, objective, to take a look at this, to bring those people together that, you know, they may come together and say, yeah, we need to do this, but then when it comes time to say, okay, well, who's going to give, or where is the cost savings, you need that objective person to help you go there. And that is really the benefit of having that type of funding stream available, especially when the towns are requesting more and more for us to take on certain services that they know are not going to threaten their identity. It's not going to be a top-down approach. It's going to relieve them of costs so that they can function as individual towns.
And we're more objective than they would be because of the whole ownership thing.
It's also
But the other piece, the sheriff was there as well.
Okay.
And they did talk about dispatch. And they talked about how much more could be saved if they really farmed out all of their dispatch to the sheriff.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anyone there who had actually seen his facility. And Jim offered to have them all come
You've seen
by
it.
bus. I'm talking about the board members. And so they're going to get a tour. And he also mentioned how he could dedicate 2 other spaces right now with the space he has to do that dispatch for all 3 towns. And they seem to be really, police is a whole different matter. You know, they have their own little ways of doing those things.
But
Yet they're coming around and they're interested in it as well. So, and then they talked about how to accomplish it. They talked about the attrition factor and how that it's going to take 5+ years to see this through, and maybe more. And then the idea that, particularly with dispatchers, there's quite a number of them. If they actually moved it to the sheriff, then and he needed more people to do it, then maybe some of the people who might be willing to move over to affect that change maybe sooner than later. But I was really impressed. It was very well done. It was very well discussed. At least an hour and a half of discussion. So that's very positive.
So in a place where they actually might implement it, there's interest, there's application information, there's actually a framework of moving ahead.
Yep.
It all started with a decision to actually look at it without a, let's say, without a fait accompli. In other words, this is everything we're going to do. A,
Right,
B,
exactly.
C, D, E, and
Exactly.
F.
Yeah.
The grant was issued, and the details were written out of what needed to be looked at, and it was accomplished. And all of these efforts that are going to be regionalized are going to need those types of studies, because you can't just say we're going to do this. Nobody is really the expert here. You need to have someone come with that information.
And they're
help you
not
out.
daunted by the fact either that they have to look at who's going to pay police officer A or B. How is the chief going to be paid?
Right.
And the administrative staff. They are not at all daunted by that task of having to look at those allocations. It's like, hey, that's all part of how this is all going to fit
Hopefully
together.
there's some transferability so that some of the other towns
Yes.
can maybe take a look at it and say, whoa.
Well, that was the other point, that this is now and that was what was part of the office of what we were trying to do, and with the DLTA funds. Now that is a public record, other people, that is available, that can now be put part of our sort of library of stock. So we can say, this has been done, this is what's been done so far, you guys can look at this, and if there's more you need for your particular area, situation, then you'll you won't have to incur
Well,
the same
I-
costs for that type of
I
study.
think the most important thing I hear out of all of this is the one word progress.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
actually progress being
Right.
made. We're not in the in the stage of rhetoric and about how good it is and how we should do it. We've actually seen some outcome. Now, I guess there is the element of you have to have a little bit of faith that that we as an executive branch we would take our responsibility seriously to make sure that the people's money is not is not spent without consideration, not without spent having a certain degree of prudence. But at the same time, we've got to move forward on this. We've asked a question about doing something, and after all of the piety about this, at the end of the day, we're told we have to go back and guarantee both an outcome and a framework of what we're doing. All I can think of is that I spent my first years out of school working in a laboratory, and the idea was I could go down that path, and if it didn't turn out to be anything, that proved that that wasn't the path to go in. And the approach to a lot of this is, it should be with the same kind of attitude. We will not find an answer if we say that we predetermined what that outcome is supposed to be, and we're just doing the study to support our opinion.
No.
That is not
Well,
that is not either scientific or rational.
And it's all to do more with less
And they were-
and become more efficient.
They were not going to leave that room last night until they had a plan and a date to come back together again.
No, they're very determined.
That was so good. I thought, boy, you
Well, that's
can.
And they're very
Yeah,
rational,
that's very
and
good.
they're very,
See, Dave Schroeder's part of this one.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
he is,
Yeah.
definitely.
He's done
Okay.
a great job.
Are we done with the budget?
Except the last thing you need to do is if you would sign the transmittal letter, that's in the
Oh,
budget.
yes.
So you just, we need to do a formal copy, and it basically says all those things that we just said now. So,
Okay.
We also have our DCPC in here for the ocean management.
Is that coming up tomorrow?
One other thing.
No, that's going to come up next week, I think. The next session.
7th, I think.
Yeah, the 7th, in April.
April 7th.
Okay, the other thing we have to do today is, I have to find out where I put it. I know I put it
Well,
back
April
in here.
8th, you mean, or is it coming?
Whatever that date
Thursday,
is.
Thursday, right?
was the 7th.
Well, you're trying to go into the Cape Cod Commission.
No, it passed the Cape Cod Commission this past week.
Oh, it did? Okay,
Yes,
that-
last week, last Thursday.
Okay,
And now it will go before the Assembly on the 7th.
all right. Does it,
But I believe it's the 7th, it might be the 21st.
Okay, I gotta figure this out now. We submitted an ordinance, what was our initial part of it was that
What we did is we nominated the
nominated, okay.
DCPC.
All right, so before it goes to the Assembly, don't we have to create an ordinance?
No, it's right here, that's what we're signing today.
Okay, thank you.
So we have to make sure
I
it's...
believe it's in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then, you sign it, and then you submit it. So you gotta
And we
submit it today.
so we're submitting it, and it's either the 7th or the 21st. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay, the other thing we have to take up is whether or not we want to.
Well, I think that one of the things that came out of the budget, if I may, is that we had a responsibility to support a policy that the budget is indicating. And although it doesn't represent a change in our authority, I think it reinforces and puts a record that we actually looked at that.
A policy statement.
In a policy statement. So I would suggest that we move ahead with that.
Yeah, and sign our
Okay.
policies.
So I have that, if you would have the original, if you want to sign
Okay.
it.
By signing it, we
So you
can...
should vote.
The policy statement is, the policy of Barnstable County in accordance with Section 140 of Chapter 194 of the Acts of 1998 shall be for the Board of Regional Commissioners of Barnstable County to provide for the sole and exclusive jurisdiction over the expenditure of the license plate funds not subject to further appropriation, and to expend such sums consistent with the stated purpose of promoting tourism and economic development. And that's the motion.
Okay,
And-
I'll make that motion.
And I second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None? 3 in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay.
Very good, so now we will,
So if the question comes up, it's a matter of record.
And we have to vote the summary of actions.
But I would say that if there's any question on how we spend money, I think that that's something that, that we owe a direct answer to anybody that asks as to what we do with the money.
Right. Well, we can, and we also don't do it haphazardly. We do it under the advisement of people who are...
Yeah, we appoint a council of advisors, of economic advisors, and 4 years ago, they advised us to spend $50,000 to fund the Open Cape project, and now that project has accomplished a $32 million federal grant. That's pretty good. Did I know what?
That's a pretty good leverage.
Well, Andy Kamara passed away.
Yes, I did know
So
that,
sorry.
yes. And there is a luncheon for him this Saturday, a brunch.
Well, there's
In Brewster.
there's an award given in his name from the
I guess what then maybe what we should do,
I'm
since
going.
you voted the license plate policy vote, maybe you should direct me to contact, who's the chair? Is Dave? the
Dave
chair?
Willard.
Dave's the chair. To formulate the plan for 2011 on license plate
Yep.
expenditures.
And yeah.
And I'll do that.
Right.
And then bring it back to you guys for
Right.
your approval.
Right.
Right, and then each time they approve a grant, it comes to us
And
anyway.
you'll do
For the,
the
recommend.
award.
The
yeah.
recommend, right.
When you think, a lot of people are saying, okay, so now they've partnered with the commission and with that SEDS project. That SEDS project, people don't understand that, exactly what that is. I didn't understand it until I was in the middle of it, but that is the 5-year recommendation of the economic initiatives that are going on throughout the county. The job is given to the regional department to vet those, to say that these are good projects, and forward them to the federal government. Once they are approved, once that SEDS plan is approved, they are more in line to have such funding. So even that process of not only the $50,000, but partnering, the EDC partnering with the commission and getting that as a priority, one of their number one priorities on that, also helped push that through. So that was that was the added, not only did our partnership, but that effort helped push that over the line. I mean, everybody can take a lot of credit. There's a lot of credit to go around, mainly to those people who did all the hard work, but those last steps...
Success has many parents.
Those last steps were very beneficial, and that was another outcome of that. For all the suspicion and criticism that arose with that partnership, that within before the year is out, there has been a result on that.
Do we vote the summary of actions yet?
No.
I didn't.
And I have two votes.
All right. Then a motion to approve.
I make a motion to accept the summary.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 3 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Maggie?
Two items. One is FMLA, so that'll have to be done at the end of the executive session. But the other is a personnel-related issue as well. It's a request for a vacation rollover, which we usually do in June as a group. This person is getting married in the summer and is looking for some type of response rather than waiting until June.
Right.
They are asking that they be allowed to carry over one of their current fiscal year weeks into next fiscal year and have to use it by, so they can carry it. So that rather than have it all used this year, they're asking to roll over. Normally we ask that out and you approve it in June, but again, this person is looking for some sort of answer prior to their
honeymoon time or something. Yeah.
prior to their wedding. So I have no problem recommending this. The department recommended it and taking it out of order. I just want to make sure that I do need a vote from you authorizing the approval.
I will move to approve
Andrew
that.
Kozel.
Oh,
I'll second that.
congratulations.
Okay.
Andrew.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 3 in favor.
And then I have an FMLA vote that I'll take at the end.
Okay,
And I have one other.
And Mark has
Before we
to-
leave this,
No, we're not going,
before we leave these personnel matters, I'll bring up the point that I think that we need to review some of these practices, which I believe could be handled by, administratively rather than coming to us for approval.
we need to formally adopt a policy to dominate that. How about
Isn't that a
that?
great idea? Perhaps we could suggest to the human resources
We'll
person
put
that
something.
they suggest a policy for us to follow.
For us
so we
to,
can delegate the authority to
delegate
deal with a lot of this administrative
those
stuff.
to you.
I have no problem doing that. I just hate taking responsibility in front of the commissioners, but I have no problem doing that.
Delegation.
Well, we'll put something.
Okay.
If you can just let us
Within
know.
some certain bounds.
Exactly.
Next
Yeah, that's right.
Thursday
Yeah, maybe
is
we can
the
do, you know,
Mayors for Meals. Did you get that?
The mayors,
Yeah.
we have no mayors in the field.
No, it's elected officials. They just
Oh.
call it Mayors for Meals, but it's elected officials helping to serve meals on wheels.
Oh,
You didn't get anything?
I haven't seen
Related
sure.
to that?
I'm sure.
No?
I haven't. Where did you get that?
By email. I will
From-
make,
Can you send it to her? Yeah, 'cause I haven't seen
I
it
will
either.
send it to everybody because it's next week and we should all probably be
Put
there.
our aprons on.
I
Yes.
do have a last minute contract. This is actually from the Human Services Department, and this is a contract with Cape Codder to do their housing discrimination conference.
Yes.
If you would sign that for Beth, I appreciate it. And I do have another vote, and this is a simple thing. It is a request of permission to use the county complex parking lot on Sunday, May 23rd, 2010, for the 18th annual Barnstable Village Road Race. If you would
Oh,
vote to do that.
I will move that.
Second it.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Three in favor, none opposed? Motion
Excellent.
carries.
And when is the road race? Maybe I'll-
It's Sunday,
July?
May 23rd.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to the chamber, so maybe I don't know if my knee will hold up anymore on a road race.
We have a couple
Anything
things
else?
coming up. No, I'm going to hold this one till our next meeting.
Okay.
I have to look at that.
So before you, would you
Oh,
convene into
well, we
executive?
we have to
haven't given
convene
our
into
individual
executive.
reports. so-
Yes. Well, I just gave mine from Eastham last night,
That's right.
so.
Well, I'll defer to
Yeah, we
Sheila.
don't go right ahead.
I went to the youth summit last Friday over at Harwich.
Yes,
It
and
was
thank you for
very-
doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
We were somewhere else.
We were at the legislative breakfast, and by the time that got over, there was no way
Oh,
you
that's
could do
right.
the
It
whole
was the
thing.
Cape.
But on the other hand, you did have Kevin Turner in your face when I was over there, as a substitute, saying, you're going to go, right? So, but in any case, it was a wonderful event. They had kids from all over the Cape. The part that we were engaged in there was a lot of energy there. There were a lot of people that that were interested in learning how to participate at a higher level. And I would say overall it was a very successful event in terms of what it was intended.
Right.
The other two things that I was involved with since last we met was the Regional Transportation Plan. I went to the second session of that over at the Intermodal Center, and that had a lot of press coverage. They had the Enterprise, the Barnstable Patriot, the Cape Cod Times, all over there, listening to what was being proposed. And they're going to have another one, I guess, in Eastham tomorrow. Typically, the ones down Cape aren't as well attended, but I thought there was a lot of good energy in that. And then today, over at the RTA, they brought out the new Google Transport, which is really terrific, because what that does is it allows you to take a look at the interconnectivity of coming to the Cape and being car-free, because you can now Google it. The elements that have to be added is the element for air, and I think they have to firm up some of the rail and bus links. But right now it's in a significant improvement. It would be a supplement this year to the Smart Guide, and they're hoping that this would be eventually, as it gets more developed, to be the Smart Guide of the future, because it would incorporate everything that's all ground transportation, water transportation, and air. So that's.
And where can you find that, Bill?
By Google, just Google Transport for. You can go Cape Cod, I think, is one way, or just you can connect through the Cape Cod Commission webpage, because that will take you to Go Cape Cod, or go to the CC, the Cape Cod RTA which is another link that would get you there. But I'm very excited about that because that does. The only way to really address congestion, and not as they got jumped on because of that one thing that they say tolls and everybody says that's what it is that if we keep individual vehicles off the Cape, they aren't contributing to congestion on the Cape. So this is a great way for people to make a rational decision with regard to it because it's something that is available, internationally.
I know I've done a lot this week. Let's see. I did attend. I sat in on a meeting with NSTAR. Came over to the commission. I know that there's a lot of talk about the herbicide spraying on the open corridors. The electrical corridors. Yes, the utility corridors.
Yeah, the transmission rights of way.
Yes, and so that has been identified. And at first, it was sort of people who were just looking at it, but it's now spreading, and it's on the general public, and people are becoming very, very concerned, and it's getting out of hand. So the Outer Cape contacted, I guess, brought this up to even the legislators about 6-7 months ago when it was really going nowhere. So I was contacted by my selectman in Wellfleet saying, is there anything you can do to help us? So I spoke with Paul, and I said, well, since this is a regional corridor as well, and it may take mapping, so we spoke about that. Paul convened a meeting with the NSTAR people to discuss it. It was then a meeting that occurred. They were saying, look, we're doing very good practices. This is all above board, and it is, but it needs. The public needs reassuring right now. So I attended a meeting in Eastham a couple of weeks ago. Representative Peake was there. Paul was there. And Paul had gotten in touch with the Senate President, who also kind of brought in, made herself familiar with the situation, made herself familiar with people at NSTAR, and did convene a meeting of the delegation. I attended that a couple of weeks ago up in the Senate office. And the Department of Agriculture was there, and the delegation to see if they could, because there was a moratorium, there was an extension of the spraying to see what the towns could do. Could the towns actually ban certain spraying, or could there? What was their purview? Well, the towns really don't have individually the right to ban herbicides. That's a state function. They are willing to. The Cape Cod Commission put out an offer saying if we could get NSTAR to agree to a year moratorium, and where we could do detailed mapping of all the wellheads throughout the Cape, all of the danger areas, all of the different estuaries, bodies of water that may be affected, and also do a study of the 3 permitted herbicides that are allowed by the state, to see indeed what are, to give a detailed study as what they were, and if there are alternatives that exist, maybe have University of Dartmouth come in and do some information with us, what could be viable options that would be more organic based if they exist. The Department of Agriculture said if you can write that up and you give us that proposal, we can extend it. We're not going to give another year, but we will extend it for as long as you need. Then the officials from NSTAR came into the Cape Cod Commission. It was the man who oversees the arborist department. Yeah, the chief arborist and the man who is the management operation, field operator of that. And their thing is, we have done phase 1. We did some of the cutting. Then we do a major spray the next year.
Every 5 years they do a major undergrowth.
But they have adopted a practice where each year is less and less, and then it's more targeted. So what they are trying to do is do away with that growth that will, the trees that will grow up into the lines, and let the blueberry bushes and the natural growth come in.
They're talking about agricultural because it turns out that it had the same thing in Harwich, which
Yes, I read that
and they
that came up.
voted to ask for a moratorium.
Right.
Okay.
So,
However,
can I just
Sure,
follow
go
up
ahead.
on this? So, so they, although they appreciated that intervention, which I think would allow people to come to cooler heads, we could get all of the best information available as to where all the wellheads are, the information on the products that are being used, and to really determine, the levels of impact it's going to have on health and wealth. And they were kind of giving a pushback as to, look, we already know this, we are doing best practices. We have to keep, if we stop for a year, then we're kind of going back on our plan, which is just going to extend the time that we're using herbicides in this manner, this sort of thing. We understand that, but I do think that if we could put a moratorium out there, have cooler heads prevail, come to the public with facts and a rational discussion as to what is going on and what is happening, this could all be taken care of in a safe and rational way. They kind of conceded to at least see the plan, the draft plan. So that's going to be coming up in about, by the end of this week, the beginning of next week. That will all be formulated. In the meantime, I did speak to people.
About the draft plan? Whose draft plan?
It would be the commission of what they're proposing and what they would do during that moratorium.
Because that was something that the NSTAR brought up at the Harwich meeting, was that they weren't clear as to what the Cape Cod Commission was asking for. They were taking, there was a lot of pushback, and they were doing it because they didn't want Harwich to vote for a moratorium.
Right.
Okay. However, they were not able to respond to the question that they were asked. Do you know where all of the water sources and and say the things that would be affected? Now, they did point out that they've been doing this for about 60 years. As far as that, they are allowed to do that. The chemicals that are allowed are ones that that are
Vetted by the state.
Well, they're allowed by the state.
Mm-hmm.
The studies that support the chemicals are at least 20 or 30 years old, and although the NSTAR sheets that support the the hazardous materials and the fact that they're doing what they call target spraying, it does not tell you what kind of buildup, residual buildup there is let's say that is entrained in the in the water table. So those are all things that have yet to be yet to be responded to. But my concern is that when the Cape Cod Commission comes up with a plan, because what
It's all of those things that you
SOAR
just said. It's exactly that.
The Department of Agriculture has specifically indicated that unless we come up with a legal reason to stop them, that they won't stop them. And you only have till, let's say, next week to get SOAR as to...
We are, that's what we're working on, is to extend that so that the plan can be devised, that detailed mapping, sophisticated mapping of today's era and not of 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, can be accomplished throughout the Cape, and the study of those pesticides that have also dated reports, and to where they stand, and if those do show some negative and unintended consequence, what would be the alternatives, and can we work with the state on this? So that is the proposal. I think NSTAR would be, it would be in their best interest and in their own public relations to take a step back and so we can go forward. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And I was on the phone with NSTAR just before I came here, which was why I was late, going kind of over to the next head.
Leo wants us to put goats and sheep out there.
Yes, I know. But then they said there's another problem, but then there's waste. It'll contribute to the waste.
Well, I saw a letter from NSTAR this morning saying that the comment period's been extended for 90 days.
It has been, yes, it has been extended for that long, but we wanted to go for a year. They thought that was excessive, but I think it's in their best interest, and that's what we're trying to impress upon them. So that's where we are on that.
Okay, before we go into executive session, just one more comment. That is, what are we handing out this afternoon to the Assembly, and what are we not? we have the PowerPoint presentation.
I do have copies of it, but you asked me not to hand it out before,
Yes,
so I won't
yeah,
hand
so
it.
that they
We'll
look
say
at the
it's afterward,
but we
yeah.
won't hand out the budget until after the PowerPoint?
No, they'll get the budget. They may already have the budget. Or
Oh, they may
it may already be distributed because we sent it over already.
Oh, okay, all right, that's all I need.
Yeah, and I do think that since you are chair, you're going to, number one, you can control
Yeah.
all of us, like wanting to add our, and
Impossible.
number two, control them as far as, this is our presentation, you have the budget before you, you have questions in the future, then we can answer, and
Well,
keep it
you
that
might want
because.
to, it may be up to you, Madam Chairman, whether you want to take questions during or just wait till the
Well,
end.
what do you
It's up to
think? What would you prefer?
My personal feeling is always take the questions as they come. That way they don't, that's
Yeah.
That's my personal feeling.
Well, if they get too many, we'll just stop them and say you have to hold them.
And also make a decision like that, you know what, Reed, you go forward with your work. Some of those questions can be answered by the individual departments.
Well, that's true. Or they
Some may
may,
come
Yeah,
up,
it's
there
not
may
up
be
to,
something
I
like
mean, we don't
that.
have.
and there's more detailed
Most of the time, you're
explanation.
really able to just
When
Just
you get
get
to
it.
it.
They're going to be discussing this with each department, so they'll get those details. If there's further discussion after all of that review,
We'll come back.
and they can pose those questions to us, and we'll be happy to come and answer them.
Okay, a motion to go into executive session and not return,
And-
to return
Nobody
to a
says yes.
recess.
I second that.
Okay.
Yes.